Justin Trudeau says that Canadians aren't looking for an election right now. All I'm going to say is I'll have whatever he's smoking. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Good old Captain Socks, President Fancy Socks, Justin Trudeau. He's at it once again, talking about how Canadians aren't ready to go to the polls, how they're not looking for an election. And while after this last Friday night stream over on Friday Night Fringe, the chat was unanimous in saying that they felt just like myself that a spring election could be on the horizon, and I still think it's very possible, as when you look at the behavioral patterns of Pierre Poilievre and his press conferences that he's done over the last few weeks, where he has stood on issues like puberty blockers for underage children, he's finally starting to state where he runs in terms of his core beliefs. And I think that when he gets into that mode, and when you look at the amount of press that he's doing, I'll say it again, and I've said in multiple other videos, I think that he's lined up for a spring election. He's in campaign mode. Time's going to tell on that one. And we're going to get into why Justin Trudeau feels that we're not ready for an election. But first, here's a word from this video sponsor, Straight Goods Clothing. Huge shout out to this video's sponsor, Straight Goods Clothing. Born from a former police officer of 17 years that left his post due to corruption and political cowardice, Straight Goods has gone on to rally thousands across North America in taking a stand against corruption. This clothing is made by high-quality standards and 100% cotton to ensure absolute satisfaction with your purchase. This Canadian-run company also donates 10% of all profits to help and assist with veterans, and that is why Unacceptable Fringe has locked arms to bring our very own line from the company as well. By purchasing, you're not only supporting a local business, but also helping to assist our veterans. Remember, staying silent and doing nothing only allows for the chaos in this country to continue. By putting on something that's bold and peaceful to make a statement is the only way that we can stand up, and what better way to say it than by donning some straight goods, link below in the description. Now, just a reminder to everybody who picks up their Straight Goods clothing, don't forget Unacceptable Fringe has a limited monthly shirt dropping every month here on Straight Goods as part of our collection. A new design will be dropping, what I'm told should be this week. Of course, I'll update you all when that comes to pass. Make sure to grab it because it's only available for a limited time. Of course, again, link is down in the description. Now, Justin Trudeau last week making a very bold statement as he's in the House of Commons, as Dane Lloyd here reports. Breaking: Liberals just claimed no Canadian wants to get into an election right now. Let's take a listen to what old Captain Socks had to say.
River Parkland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's rich coming from this government that relentlessly lobbied senators to block Bill C-234. Bill C-234 removes the carbon taxes off the farmers who grow our food. And we know inflation is hitting Canadians hard, whether it's housing, the cost of fuel, and food. Everything is getting more expensive under this NDP Liberal government. And after 8 years, Canadians know that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. And the only way that Canadians will get the tax relief they deserve is by electing a common sense conservative government. So when will these Liberals call the election so we can axe the tax?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the truth comes out. They want to go into an election. No Canadian wants to go into an election right now. And again, our support for farmers has been consistent. We supported our supply managed sector. We supported our farmers, helped transition towards a greener economy. That's why we've invested $1.5 billion that helps farmers directly on the land to ensure that they can provide some technology for farmers.
The Liberal Party coming out saying nobody wants an election. Now, why would the Liberal Party of Canada not want an election? Well, it's very simple. When we look at the latest polls from Nick Nanos, even the CTV prostitutes are reporting that the Liberals are at risk of big losses in Vancouver, and the big kicker is Toronto. Now, a lot of people, anytime we talk about the state of voting in this country and how far a federal vote goes in this country, many people often say, well, my vote doesn't matter because it's usually that lower pocket of Ontario that decides who the next leader of this country is going to be. Well, if anything of this Nick Nanos post, now I usually don't take polls into consideration, but if they're going to be big losses, as this article reports, and again, these are government shills posting this in Toronto, well, that could mean big problems for Justin Trudeau. We've already seen people in Toronto unhappy with the fact that most of their streets are overrun now with asylum-seeking refugees, and that Olivia Chow is more concerned with renaming streets that she deems as racist versus solving the housing problem in her city. But let's continue on with what this article has to say so we can better justify exactly why Justin Trudeau is saying that Canadians don't want to go into an election. The federal Conservatives hold on to a commanding lead over the Liberals, we've known that for a while, who are at risk of losing large swaths of Metro Vancouver and the GTA they won in the last federal election. Now keep in mind, Trudeau is not in a majority right now, he's in a minority government with coalition of the NDP. So if he's to lose, as it says here, large swaths in the GTA, that could really affect his any hope of a chance he has left of clinging on to power in Canada. And that is, of course, according to the latest ballot numbers and seat projection data from Nano's research. If the election was held today, the Conservatives would get a 40% of the ballot support, making a 15-point lead over the Liberals, who are at 24.7% ballot support. That's an increase of 6.3 percentage points for the Conservatives, which is damning to the Liberals when compared against the 2020 election, when the Liberals are at a 7.9% points lower than they were 3 years ago. The bottom line is, if an election were held today, we're talking still about a Conservative majority government. I think what we're going to see if we were to have an election is essentially a blue wave across the country. I don't know anybody who's satisfied with the level of work that Justin Trudeau has done to support this country. In fact, he's done nothing to support the country. He's destroyed it. Nick Nanos, chair of Nanos Research and CTV official pollster, said on the latest episode of Trendline that the NDP sit at a 20.6%, which is slightly up by 2% on their points, just 4 percentage points separate them now from the Liberals. So they're trending against the Liberals. The Bloc Québécois are at 7.4%, largely unchanged from 2021. They usually aren't. Meanwhile, the Greens and the People's Party sit at 5.1% and at 1.3% ballot support, respectively. When it comes to the party leaders, Nanos found that 35.1% of respondents said Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was the preferred choice for Prime Minister, and incumbent Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sits at second with 20.8% preferring him as Prime Minister of Canada. Can you imagine that only 20% of the population, which is a very small number, think that he's worthy of that title? And I can guarantee you the 20.8% of those votes are probably people who have their jobs on the line if Justin Trudeau loses his position, such as CTV prostitutes that are paid by the government. In addition, 13.8% preferred NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who constantly claims he's one day going to be Prime Minister. Again, whatever he's huffing, give me some. While 4.3% preferred Green Party co-leader Elizabeth May and 2.2% preferred Maxime Bernier over the People's Party. And that's an important one to talk about because a lot of people are constantly telling me I support Maxime. And while I feel Maxime has great views, I believe that he's one of the true politicians that's always put his views front and center throughout his entire history of campaigning for the PPC. He can't get his seat. When you look at his ridings in Manitoba and anytime they've had an election, while I feel and support what Max thinks and his ideologies, unfortunately, he can't even get his seat, and only 2.2% preferred Bernier over the People's Party. Now, it's important to state in this video that I'm not criticizing anybody who votes for the PPC. Hell, I voted for the PPC in the last federal election. However, I don't know where these polls were conducted, where Nanos conducts these polls to get these numbers. It could be a low area, but it definitely is a telling that anybody who has hopes for Maxime Bernier, while I've always said I would like to see a Conservative government with a minority PPC to keep them in check, those chances aren't even viable. Seat projection in the below Nano seat projections maps, the current seat projections are on the left. The results from 2021 are on the right. So as we see here, a lot of these areas shaded out in gray. I'm assuming that's unpolled or undecided. But you can see here all this red coming in the lower end of the GTA, which is now sitting vacant. And they're stating by this article, at least, they haven't colored them blue. Maybe they're just showing that as a loss riding for the Liberals, according to the poll, so that you can see Where the gains are coming from, I'm not 100% sure. But it says here Toronto and the surrounding suburbs have been the strongest base of support for the Liberals in the last election. The Liberals won every single seat in the city of Toronto, as well as every seat in many of the suburbs, such as Mississauga, Brampton, Pickering, and Oakville. According to Nano's seat projections, many of these ridings are at risk of turning blue, especially in the 905 region just outside of Toronto. Even in downtown Toronto, which again, full of refugees right now and high levels of crime and car theft. Nanos calls it ground zero for the Liberal Party of Canada. The data shows the NDP potentially in a position to pick up seats. A setback in Toronto would be like an emergency situation for the Liberals, Nanos said. When you get outside of Toronto, you can see that some of those other ridings, the Mississauga, the Bramptons, it's going to be the Conservatives that are going to be some of the key challengers, he added. And of course, again, you look at over here, these very large ridings that are now sitting in favor of the Conservatives. So it's going to be very interesting, but it clearly paints a picture why the Liberals are saying, well, Canadians aren't ready to go to the polls. No, the Liberals are not ready to go to the polls. Justin Trudeau is scared. He knows that all he has left until next year, if an election isn't called, in order for him to screw up the country and pad his pockets, because the writing is on the wall. Pierre Poilievre is going to be prime minister, and well, this is the end of Justin Trudeau. I know people say, I hear it all the time, but these polls, especially when you look at Toronto, are very important when dictating where these elections, as of today, are going to go. But let me know your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Is the writing on the wall? Does Trudeau have any hope other than election fraud to maintain his seat as the Prime Minister of Canada? And again, I'm not going to rule that out. But if it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to hit that button below and also click your bell for notifications. Join us every Friday night here on the channel for Friday Night Fringe, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, where we're going to talk about things like this that went on throughout the week, and also talk about a little bit of back and forth answering Q&A within the community. It's always great to see new people there. In fact, we had an influx of new viewers last week, and it was great to chat with everybody and hear from you outside of these videos. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there, and I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I know I will. I'll see you on the next one.